What's up, guys? Welcome back to Neftaly podcast. We're actually here today. We're going to interview Nef. We're going to hear his story. You're going to see his side of things, kind of get to know him on a more personal level, and we'll kind of just start there. So, Nef, let's hit it off.
So, hey guys, I'm Nef. My full name is Neftaly Maldonado. It's a name my parents gave me. They're from South Texas. They're originally from Mexico. They moved out here and they gave me the success I have now. And the reason I say that, because if it weren't for them, I wouldn't be here right now, honestly. So appreciate them for having me. My background is educator. I have an educator background. Of course, I'm a hairdresser. Hairdresser means I specialize in both male and female hair. My background is more education because that's where I started off in the industry first. I guess you could say that was one of my first jobs, being a teacher, business owner, and then just working my ways on there. But the way I started was back in high school. I started off my career in the industry, but going back before that, in junior high and all of that, I was more involved in like family friend stuff, more church going. I went to church a lot, so I have a lot of the church background, which I am blessed to have that because I feel like it structured me in a way where I feel like I'm more secure as far as like my mindset, the people I associate to. Oh yeah, definitely. So my parents instilled that hard on me growing up, so I appreciate that. So I was involved with a lot of church stuff more than school stuff. So I wasn't really in school, like extracurricular activities. I was more in church extracurricular activities. So I was more in like the fine arts and drama and stuff like that, but with the church. So I did a lot of that church stuff first, and then eventually went into high school, started working. I worked in high school. I worked at Peter Piper. Yeah. So I got to work at Peter Piper. So I worked half my school year while I was in school. As soon as I turned 16, I legit started working that same day. On my birthday, I started working my first day. So I started that, which I'm blessed because I got to learn that fast food wasn't for me. So I got to learn that at a young age, at 16, that fast food wasn't for me. In high school, didn't really play any sports. I did start a lot of AP classes and all of that with Freddie and everybody else. But sophomore year, I kind of realized like I wasn't really feeling like the GT classes or the Excel classes. So I kind of just dropped those, went back to regular school schedules. And by junior year, I had doubled so many classes up, freshman and sophomore year. That junior year, it was just a breeze. And by senior year, I only had one class to take. So with that being said, I had so many extra hours that I had to do for school, but I didn't have any classes, like core classes that I needed to take because I had already taken care of like health and all of those core classes that we needed to take care of.
Did you do that because you wanted to get out of school already, or did you already know what you wanted to do, or what happened? Like.
So no, growing up with the background of working with my parents, my dad, working with him, I worked in construction and stuff like that. So I knew if you want to eat, in the Bible, when the Bible it says, if you work, the ones who work will eat, you know what I mean? So it's one of those where it's like, if you don't work, you don't eat. So you got to just put the grind in it. And he instilled that with me. Waking up early, working with him in construction, you got to be out there super early before the sun goes out. If not, you're going to be dying in Texas. And as the years go, people could feel the heat is just getting worse and worse out here in Texas. So I realized that real quick. Construction, I love it, and it was physical work, and I did learn a lot. So I'm thankful for that because I get to use all those abilities that I have, and me personally fix everything that needs fixing myself, and I don't have to pay the middleman or pay the companies and corporations to fix stuff that I know I could fix and probably fix it a lot better. And they just instilled that in me. I didn't plan to do the cosmetology course. I got more as a dare in high school, which Freddie was one of the ones that dared me in school. There was like a group of us, right? And we had to pre-register our junior year, I believe. We had taken our tax tests. We're like one of the last ones to take the tax test, I believe. We took the tax test, finished pretty early, so they gave us our pre-registration forms for the following year. I didn't have any classes to take. They dared me to join the cosmetology class, and I'm like, well, shoot, it's not really for me, but I'm more of a hands-on learner. So I was like, it might be a quick learning experience. So I honestly got in as a dare. I didn't join because I wanted to. If that was the case, I would have had to get in as a sophomore. I got in as a junior, so I was already a whole year behind compared to everybody else, which we'll get to that. We'll get to that soon. But yeah, we did all of that. Did the cosmetology program. Got my license to cut hair there. Got to meet a lot of people there too. I think our class in cosmetology was about.
But you got your license in high school?
In high school. So yeah, so as I was in high school, since I didn't have any other classes, I was completing my hours to finish my license and got my Texas license to cut hair. So I got my license to cut hair there. I did that for a little bit, started cutting hair, got my license. Actually, senior year, I only had one class. So like by mid-senior year, I was done with my cosmetology courses too. So my hours were already checked out. I just had to test out, and I was done with that whole course as well, which is a blessing because that test is an expensive test, and it's an expensive course that if you don't take advantage of stuff like that, you might have to end up paying thousands of dollars.
And I know you said you were working at Peter Piper, but were you still working and cutting hair and going to school, or what did you kind of do once you had your license?
So when I started working at Peter Piper, I was barely starting the cosmetology program. So I had just turned 16 and I was working at Peter Piper, started cosmetology, and then I had to make a decision. Was I gonna keep working and make money, or was I gonna keep the cosmetology program and get the license and then focus on something else? Which that's the path I ended up taking. I ended up quitting Peter Piper. I worked for them like maybe 5-6 months before I was like, you know what? It ain't worth it. I started cutting hair and I was charging my friends like $5-10 here and there, which back then $5 was pretty
Hey bro,
steep,
who'd you
man.
charge $5, man?
Hey,
He's charging me 50.
That's now prices. That's now prices. But no, yeah, so we started off there cutting at the field house, there at the cosmetology spot, cutting some of the janitors and some of the teachers. So got my practice with them, and really thankful because some of them didn't look so pretty getting out of there, but now I got them.
There you go.
And now I got them, and I got to meet a lot of people, especially in this industry, because as a barber, you just meet people coming in and out of your chair, or as a hairdresser, because I do female hair too, so I get to see a lot of females change their hairstyles, and honestly, it changes a person. It does really change a person, looking good, feeling good. Everything's gonna turn out good, you know what I mean? Sometimes a little haircut or a little pick-me-up kind of helps everybody here and there. So yeah, that helped me out a lot.
I always say, man, every time you cut my hair, I went from a 3 to a 4.
So yeah, so went from working at Peter Piper, started my cosmetology program, got in as a dare, finished that course, got my license, started doing hair, working for the mom and pop shops here and there. Went back to my teacher, my educator at that time, Miss Lopez, shout out to her. Very important teacher of mine. She's one that stands out of mostly all of them. There are a handful of teachers out there that stand out. Lopez takes the cake for sure. I know I'm not the only student, and I guess you could say friend, because she is a friend to me and she is a mentor. And I know I'm not the only person, not even in her age group, that thinks and feels the same way about her just because of her demeanor and the way she carries herself. Very humbling person, very positive, which eventually she's gonna have to make an episode no matter what. She has to. She's a very amazing person. Her mindsets, her thoughts, her views of life, it's very different compared to a lot of people. And I mean, I'm a big believer in not a lot of people could teach, and not everybody's built to be a teacher, especially nowadays where the generations are getting a little tougher to teach. You definitely have to have patience. You have to have courage to even show up to classes sometimes, because it could be a lot of work and not a lot of people realize that. And to be honest, the pay's not that great. And when you do get paid, half the times you're sacrificing that to help out the community, help out the students better themselves, because you want to see them succeed. And she is one that really taught me that, because if it weren't for her, like Freddie, we had to work for what we got. If your car broke down, you got to work, you got to fix it, you got to put it together. So she definitely helped build that bridge. I want to shout outs to Ed Calchelsa High School, because they do offer a lot of opportunities that a lot of students do not take advantage of. And it's very important that you do take advantage of those things, because you might not see it now, but that's a lot of money you could save yourself now, and a lot of potential money you could make later.
Well, because you didn't go to college, and I know we're going to get into that, but a lot of people don't realize we see it when we get older, but did not going to college affect you in any way? Or what do you think are some misunderstandings about going to college and not going to college and making money?
Okay, so me going to college, let me go a little bit, let me reverse a little bit. Me, when I was in elementary, growing up, my parents, I mean, you didn't really go to the doctor unless you were sick.
Sick.
So sick. And sick, I mean, you're either bleeding or dying. On the floor.
Yeah.
And that's just one thing which I feel I'm thankful because my immune system's a rock. But it's one of those where it's like you growing up, not knowing you're dyslexic and you having to figure that out on your own and being like, okay, how do I cope with this? Because that's one thing I have. I'm not medically diagnosed dyslexic, but I mean, come on, all these times and all these things going, I know I'm dyslexic.
You're medicated.
So that's one thing that I'm like, I really push people because I feel like, oh yeah, I'm dyslexic and all this, but I also got my license to teach, which I'm gonna get into that in right now too. But I didn't let that stop me from moving ahead. Now that I'm older, seeing other people or seeing TikToks and seeing all these self-diagnoses and stuff like that, I kind of lead towards that ADHD kind of stuff, if you get what I mean. I feel self-diagnosed because I'm all over the place, I'm hyper, I'm always here and there and trying to fix everything all at once. So that's just me personally. So if you see me once in a while get off topic, that's just me personally. Or if you see me repeating, that's who I am. That's who I am. I'm sorry, I'm trying.
Yeah, you're being honest.
But this is me, this is who I am. My dyslexia sometimes gets in the way and it makes me tongue-tied because I'm trying to get that word out and I'm trying to get it there, but we make it work. But that second grade kind of held me back a little bit. I got retained in second grade, so I was held a year, which that's how I ended up with Freddie. And I am a believer everything happens for a reason, which honestly, the class I graduated with, I love them, class of 2013, shout out to you guys. You guys are there for me, I'm there for you guys, even though we don't really talk to each other as much. We see you guys on Facebook, we see you guys succeeding, we see you guys making moves, we see you guys doing everything, which we are totally excited and happy to see you guys doing that. Like, it's pretty awesome.
Well, also, if they ever want to come on the show, just reach out to us.
Oh, definitely.
There's so many stories.
And we, now with this platform, you don't have to reach out on this platform since you guys know us on a personal level. Shoot us a text, shoot us a message. We're there for you guys no matter what. We are busy, hectic people, but we try to make a time to get back to you guys. We appreciate you guys too. And I mean, we all grew up together, seeing everybody in their separate levels succeeding. Yeah. And there's some people that we see that can push themselves a little more too, but I mean, we're no one to judge. We're no one to judge. We're just here to encourage and make y'all feel better about yourselves. And going back to what I was saying, yeah, I got retained in second grade. Because I wasn't diagnosed with anything. It was one of those where it's like, oh, he just doesn't want to listen. He doesn't want to learn. And then when I got held back, that's when I started doing some of those extra classes where they try to help you read with using different techniques and different stories, which that kind of, I hated that because they took away my PE time to go help me with that. And I loved PE. If you guys don't know me, I love playing tackle football and all that good stuff, man. I love recess. So they took that away from me for a little bit, and that's when I was like, all right, well, we're gonna have to make this work because I need my playtime. So we had to just bust it out and grind it out. I did meet Mr. V, which I believe he was my fourth grade teacher, and he pretty much pushed me a little bit more, got me to understand that there's more to life than just being here as well. Nice. I did not start my barbering program because of him, but I do remember for career day, he was a teacher and a barber at the same time. So I was one of his demos for one of his haircutting like demos for class for business day. Yeah. And I didn't start because of that, but he did cut my hair, which is awesome. He used to cut my nephew's hair and all of them. So I did know a little bit about that. It wasn't a career I was attacking. Of course, I was still young, so no one really knows what they want to grow up and do. Honestly, not even when you're 18 going to college, you really don't know what you want to do until you're there. But yeah, seeing him there, he really pushed me and got my mindset growing. He helped me out understand how to read a little bit better with the struggles I had, and he helped me get to where I need to be and pushed me. Then I started excelling into all my classes because of those techniques and all of that. And then I ended up with Freddie in AP classes and then going into all of that. And then we stuck around pretty much. If you had an AP or GT class, you're pretty much stuck with the same people all your time until you decide, you know I don't need this. I don't really care about 10%. I don't really care about that. I ended up just stopping my junior year because sophomore I had already finished. So junior year I jumped into cosmetology, dropped all those classes because I knew I didn't really care about going to college or not. So I started that. They dared me, joined the cosmetology program, did that since. Jumped, fast forwarded into a year after graduation. I was working at a mom and pop shop, did that, applied to JCPenney's. They make you do a questionnaire thingy kind of thing. Okay. But like I said, my ADD, my dyslexia and all that stuff, especially when you're timed, you're kind of just overthinking, especially with stuff that you haven't studied or even have a clue what you're looking at. What you're looking at, which is crazy because for the cosmetology course, you have to take a 100-question questionnaire. And you have to study 16 chapters, and it's a state exam test, and you're timed with a camera in front of you. But since it was a knowledge or information that I've been studying and learning for a long time, just looking at it, boom, I just ran through it. You know what I mean? But when it comes to something where it's just thrown at me and I have no clue what it is or what I'm talking about, that's where I get that struggle and start second guessing, and it gets more of a thought process. But it's one of those where I got to learn to cope with that. I did teaching. I started teaching with Miss Lopez. I went in as a TA pretty much. I learned how to teach. I got that process down. That's a whole other exam you have to take, which honestly, I've heard is a lot harder than what people think. That cosmetology exam was, the instructor's exam was one of the harder tests that people can take. I heard it's a little bit harder than your TEKS and stuff like that, which is one of the exams the teachers have to take to educate. And that course was amazing because you get to learn a lot of things. It's sad that they did away with that course now. That course, you no longer need it to teach cosmetology now, but it's one of those where I at least had it and I have it on my background. I had that experience and I got to learn a lot from it. It goes into classroom setups, into emotions, into the colors of your wall, how that makes an effect on everything. So it's one of those where you get to learn a lot of things, and not mentally, but both physically. You get to see what the difference is between a classroom setup. You get to learn a lot of things.
Yeah, it's like psychology based.
Yeah, it's pretty much psychology based, and that's what the exam is all about, honestly. And I did all of that being dyslexic and having all these problems, you know what I mean? So it's one of those things where I encourage you, if you guys have a problem like that, don't let it stop you. Go out there, run it through. What's going to hold you back? Them say no or maybe laugh at you? I mean, there's plenty of people out there that might not even try this opportunity for you, even to take that step and try yourself. That's always a leg up, I feel like.
So why did you do both? Like start cutting guys' hairs and girls' hair?
So the educator I had, she specialized more in female hair. Okay. So I learned more female growing up. So in the beginning of the career, I did a lot more layering haircuts, but I didn't let I didn't start there. We started off with nails, so I know how to put acrylics on. Oh, wow. I know how to do all your, for makeup and all that, I know the basics and I know what goes where, how to blend what. Now, if you want me to do all this airbrush look and all that, no, I'm not your guy. Basics, or you need the fundamentals or the education about it, I could probably help you. After that, if you want the application, I'm not your dude. Now, if you need a haircut or curls or color, come to me, I got you. Other than that, I mean, in this career, you learn, since I taught it, you need to learn how to do your nails, you need to learn aesthetics, which is your face mapping, the contouring and all that stuff of your face. You learn all your hair care, you learn cancers, you learn bacteria, you learn everything in this industry. So it's one of those where you pretty much...
Do you think that separates you from barbers? Because you're not a barbershop, you're like a salon.
Right? I think what separates me from barbers is attention to detail and consistency, I guess.
Because you have to go through all of that. It's not just, definitely. Okay, next.
And me fixing a lot of people's mistakes, because I was a teacher for a couple of years, so I had to fix a lot of haircuts growing up. Me fixing a lot of those haircuts actually made me faster in doing my haircuts, because instead of going a certain way or going a certain level, I just attack it way shorter now because I already know how the outcome will churn, you get me? So it's one of those that I've learned throughout.
Because you saw it, you've been through it, so you know the outcome of something. If it's going bad, you can already see where you can make it better.
Definitely. And then me moving to College Station, I've worked with all hair types. So me just seeing your hair type, how it stands, how it sits, how it moves naturally, I could already tell, okay, we can't touch here because that will stick up. We can't go too long here because then that will start curling. That's not going to want to stay up anymore. That's going to just flop in front of your face. And my visual expertise, or just me knowing how hair flows and how hair works, that's what separates me from other hairdressers or barbers, because not a lot of people understand hair for what it is. They think a simple fade's gonna look good on everybody, but in reality, it just depends on the hair type. If their hair's too thin and you go with a high fade, or a mid fade, it's gonna look like a high fade. If you go with someone with thick hair and give them a low fade and it's too tight, it's just gonna look like a taper, it's gonna look like a mushroom, you know what I mean? So it's one of those where it's like, me doing it for so long and seeing different head structures and seeing different hair types, thicknesses and levels, and it all changes, because I have a lot of students here at A&M that come see me and they suffer from a lot of hair loss because of the stress that they go through in school. And it's one of the things that I feel sad for them, because it's like they're not even our age yet and they're already experiencing all that stuff, and they're going through all these emotions and all these changes, and not a lot of people are ready for things like that, and they don't really pay attention to the way they look because they're going through harder things. And if you really pay attention to them, like there's a lot you could tell just by the hair. Me being in this industry, seeing all these hair changes and seeing all these hair things, how hair is thinning out compared to like before. Yeah. And I've been in this hair for 12 years, so I've seen it change. And it's crazy, because I'm one of those believers that after COVID, everybody has experienced hair loss. Everybody has experienced more stress. Everybody has experienced a lot of things, and we don't really communicate and talk about stuff like that. And I feel like it's more common, but people need to know, like, you got to take care of yourself. You really got to look into what are in these things that you're eating, because it all goes back to diet as well. Wow. Everything that goes to your hair, it's all on your dieting, it's all on your personal, your emotions. Everything has to do with your hair. Your hair is one of the most important parts of your body. It has the most nerves if you really think about it, if you think about each follicle. So it's one of those where you really got to know it. And me being in the hair industry, I mean, it's one of those things I catch on real quick.
Going on to that much detail, right? You're going nails, hair, all that. And I know you're trying to say, like, this is what kind of separates you from other people. Have you oftentimes been misunderstood because you have your own business? Like, you have almost 2,000 square feet here. You started just cutting hair. How are you at where you're at now? Because most businesses fail within the first year. Dude, you're going on over 5 years?
So yes, seeing that, and I'm gonna go back to teaching, because I feel like it's connected in some way. I feel like it goes all back to ego. Okay. I feel like it all goes back to ego, because me being a teacher at a young age, I was teaching already at 21. I taught in high school students that were young as well. So it's one of those where it's like, yeah, I'm older, but we're kind of almost on the same age. You get to see all the problems that those kids have.
But you think you could relate to that or help them in some way?
I'll get deeper into that. Make sure you bring that up, because I do want to share a story about that. But where was I? I was getting lost.
So going back about, have you ever been misunderstood or?
Okay, so yeah, misunderstood. So yeah, me teaching at 21, I had students that were in their 30s and their 40s, and since I was the young gun, it's one of those where they were kind of like, oh, like, he doesn't know what he's talking about. He's barely 21. I'm starting this career, and he's already done this career. He's already educating in this career, and he's barely 21. Why should I take information from him? But then that's when I put my work in. I put my work into it, and I prove my worth. Yep. And that's when they get to see, like, oh, okay, he really knows what he's talking about. And that's why I say people just being ignorant is one of the most crucial parts. Because
so not your self-ego, you're talking about just people's ego.
People's ego. I feel like people's ego is what hurts them the most and gets in the way. Because if your ego is, oh, he's too young, why is that even your mindset if he's your educator? Yeah. As an educator, he's there to help you. Why is that your mindset? Why is age even a matter in this industry? You know what I mean? Me being in this industry, my best friend or my mentor is Miss Lopez. She has maybe 30, 40 years on me. Yeah. And I could call her one of my good friends. If I have any problems, whether it be here or whether it be personal, I could give her a phone call, she'll answer, and she'll help me in the best way she can. Vice versa. I am a very young, educated person in business and what I do best. If she has any problems or needs help or wants to help some of her students, she'll reach out to me and I'll do my best to help them. You know what I mean? Going back to ignorance is one of the problems a lot of people have, and just not willing to take in that information.
Yeah, they're stopping themselves from more, basically.
Themselves from more. And I feel like that's one of the biggest things a lot of people have. And me personal, I probably did that too, because seeing other people like, nah, you can't be better than me. But seeing that and knowing that the age doesn't matter in this career, you could have friends and all over and people starting at different levels. It's one of those where if you're willing to learn, you're going to take it.
Yeah.
And if you're not willing to learn, what are you doing there?
But do you love this, or did this become something that you fell in love with?
So it's something I fell in love with. I do love teaching. Yeah. I did do teaching for about 2 years. I left teaching because the money wasn't there for me, and I felt like I had more opportunities out there. I feel like teaching is more a retirement job for me if I wanted ever just to retire, go back, work that 9 to 5, and I'm done, you know what I mean? But I feel like I still have a lot of energy and a lot in me to move forward. So I do feel like that was the big thing.
So kind of like, okay, we're on track. So I said, how do you have this business after 5 years? Because you're not in the Valley. You're in College Station. You know the rates here. They can jump from, high teens to upper 30, 40s per square foot. So how are you succeeding? What makes you stand out from the competition?
So that's also what I was going to get to. My ego. Consistency is always going to be the thing. I don't let my ego, I'm better than this person, better than that person, get to my head. No, I humble myself, and anybody that's willing to come in and wait for me, that's how I take it. So it's one of those where I don't really promote myself too much. You as an example, no, I never promoted myself. Yeah. I don't put myself on the internet. I don't get myself on the radio. I do not advertise as much. If you go look at my last post, it was probably posted 3 months ago or a month ago. I do not do advertisement, and I know that's one of the things I lack in.
But hold up.
I don't need it.
That's the crazy part. You don't do that.
I don't need it.
Exactly. Why? Yeah.
I honestly, I'll go back to my faith. Yeah. I feel like God has my back, and as long as I do it, and I feel like He has my back, I'm willing to jump into it. And to be honest, I've never done none of that since I got here, and I've been succeeding. Another shout outs are all the organizations out here at A&M. There are so many organizations out here, so many fraternities, so many sororities, so many everything out here, and they see the difference within a person, within a barber. And word of mouth, they see a difference within the work, the quality, the way you treat them, the way you talk to them, the way you take the time to even explain why their hair won't work out the way it won't work out.
It's more than that.
And I feel like I put ignorance in there for a big one, because I feel a lot of barbers are ignorant. What do I mean by that is they don't pay attention to what the client's asking for. They don't pay attention to what the hair looks like. They don't pay attention to what the head shape is. They don't pay attention to that. And I feel like ignorance is one of those that's going to hurt you a lot, because if you're ignoring all of that there and it's in front of you, and if you're ignoring the person that's sitting in your chair and you're seeing it in front of you and you're just ignoring it and you're just doing your work, you're not going to get the results you want. So
yeah, what's the point? Yeah.
What's the point? And it's one of those where it's like, just pay attention, stick with your clients, be consistent. The way you carry yourself, the way you approach a certain question, the way you approach a certain person, you got to learn how to read the room is one of the most important things. Shout outs to the Gents organization, shout outs to the One Army, shout out to all the boys out there, which the core. We got a couple core people, which little by little they start disappearing, but yeah, we get the core people as well. But it's very awesome, and all the stuff that they're involved in too, hearing all their struggles and their successes, it's very awesome. But yeah, it's very cool meeting a lot of people, and that's how I kind of pushed myself, got my name out there, cut one of the guys up, which Jordan, he was one of the first ones. He moved in. He was one of the roommates that moved in with us. He was homeless for 3 weeks, I believe, or he needed to stay with us for a couple of days, and he actually started getting his haircuts with me because of that. That's how we built that relationship, started cutting him up. People would stop him on the streets. People would stop him. So start asking him. Your work speaks for yourself in my industry. If you put the best work that you could put out there, you get more work coming in. So it's one of those where it's like, I've been blessed this far. I have my faith in God. My wife, she's helped me out thick and thin. She's been my receptionist for almost 5 years already. So she's held it down for me, which I am very thankful for, because if I had to answer phones and write back people, text back people, book people and all that stuff, there's only one of me. So luckily I have a wife that makes 2 of us in our family. And that she's pretty much the backbone of the what runs this whole spot. I'm legit I'm the mule that cuts the hair, but she's the one behind the chair doing everything else.
The one running it.
She's the one running the business and taking the money. So
that's awesome.
Pay the lady. So pay the lady. No, so I'm very blessed to be in the position I have to support me, my family in College Station. Like you said, it's growing. Prices are going up everywhere. Rent's going up everywhere. What people don't see is that being a business owner, you pretty much have 2 mortgages, you have 2 water bills, you have 2 light bills, you have 2 electricity bills, you have 2 internet bills, you have 2 cable bills, you got to share Netflix accounts.
You got 2 main TVs.
You got 2 main TVs. You got to take care of your plants. If you have plants, you got to make sure you have your equipment for the right things. If you don't have the right equipment, try your best to get the right equipment, because equipment is one of the most important things.
I learned from you is buying cheap is not always best.
So
like, can you go a little bit more into that?
Okay.
Because I know you're really good at, like, if I only have to buy it once and it'll last me years.
So
if you can, you do. So I don't know if you can explain a little bit about that.
Yeah. So me, in pretty much in any process growing up, you learn things in life young. Me working with my dad. He's worked with all his tools he's had. He's taken care of all his tools. Wow. So seeing that with all those cement tools and all of that stuff, it's one of those where if you're missing this one tool, it's not going to give you the finish you want. You know what I mean? And it's one of those where it's like, if people want that final look, you have to have that tool. And he's one of those, he's always had tools laying around. If he doesn't have it once, he'll go buy it again. And I'm sure Freddie could relate to this because his dad's a mechanic. Oh. I'm sure he has 3 wrenches laying around in the same spot.
It's always the 10
same
millimeters.
Size.
They get lost.
So it's one of those where it's like you invest in yourself for the outcome. You get what I mean?
I like that.
So for me, I'm a firm investor in my equipment, which are my shears, my clippers, and all of that. I do believe there's stages in barbering and cosmetology. If you're doing cosmetology, really hone in on what you want to specialize in, because that in cosmetology you can broadly go anywhere. The same with barbering, it's pretty broad, because a lot of people don't know, if you're going to barbering school, you still got to learn how to do nails. Maybe not into depth, but you still have to know the basics. You still have to know how to do a perm. You still have to do pretty much everything a cosmetology can. You still have to do, but maybe not into the detail. You get me? So it's one of those where they still got to learn it. But as you get older, you start learning, you start messing with chemicals, and you start learning with bleaches and stuff like that. Which one takes care of the hair more, which one doesn't. But if you notice, the one that helps out the hair more is going to be pricier. So it's one of those where it's like you have to know what you're working with. I cut thousands of heads every month. So for me, I deeply invest in my clippers. I have 2 set clippers, 2 edgers, 2 shavers, and then my shears. My shears are the most expensive shears I have ever invested in myself. And those shears, Hanzo shears, shout out to Hanzo Shear. I'm looking for a deal later. That's one of the shears that I really invested in, and they're very good shears. They're cut to perfection. Anything that happens to them, let's say they dull out later on and they need anything, they come and service them. They take care of everything. Oh, wow. So it's one of those where, yeah, I did pay a couple thousands of dollars, but your investment is what you get back. And it's one of those where if I go buy a $200 shear at Sally's, for the amount of haircuts I do here, a $200 shear will last me a week, 2 weeks. If I buy a $300 shear, $400 shear, that will last me 2 months before I have to sharpen, a month maybe before I have to sharpen. Now the shears I invest in, you're talking about over $2,000 each, but the quality of the steel and everything is totally different. I do cut a lot of thicker heads. I cut a lot of afros. I cut everything out here. So it's one of those where I have the proper tool for the job.
So why 2? You said you have 2 of this, 2 of that.
2, because if you pay attention to my schedule, I'm booked every 30 minutes. So it's one of those, if I have a clipper that goes out halfway, it accidentally drops. Nowadays, these clippers, you drop it once, it's done. You have to go replace your whole shear, your whole guard and everything. The whole blades, you have to realign. So it's one of those where it's like, you don't want to get backed up. Me learning time is money. Time is money. So for me, if I have 2 clippers laying there, I'm running, to be honest, I cut maybe I cut about 3 to 4 clients an hour. Yep. That's how many clients I cut. So it's one of those, if I have my clipper running for a whole hour, you know how hot that's gonna be? Yeah. So I have to alternate in betweens and stuff like that, or while one sanitizing, the other one's getting to use and stuff like that. So it's one of those where backup. So I have my clientele and my consistency to where I can run my equipment like that. And I feel like if I only had one, it's one of those where I'm not looking for the best of my clients. Or let's say I feel like one's dulling out already, I'll just put that aside and then I'll just work with the other. So I always have 2 at every time, so because you just never know.
So one thing that you mentioned was that you took all these opportunities, right? So some people might say you took a lot of risk, but you said that you have faith behind you. You just did it because you knew, like, your faith in God, like, it's gonna work out. Oh, definitely. Like, your mentality was never negative. It was always like, it doesn't matter what I do, it's gonna work out.
And to be honest, like, the way I think, there's no time to think negative, because you don't get nothing out of negativity. Yeah. So for me, you always got to stay positive, even though it's not looking the brightest. You just have to keep looking for it, because if you, like you said, if you hone yourself in and you just stay sheltered, you're never gonna get anywhere. And it's kind of like the blind leading the blind. If you don't have the courage to stand up and walk, I mean, no one's gonna walk for you. Yeah. Especially nowadays, it's very hard for someone to actually grab you by the hand and try to take you to where you need to be. And it's one of those where you have to take that initiative and just go for it.
So what are some risks that you took that people can be taking right now to get them to where you're at, or at certain steps? So first would be like, you started in high school, right? And instead of going to college, you went to do education. So you taught people. So you did your license, you did education, you worked for mom and pop, you moved to College Station, like, you started your own business. Like, so from all those 5, what do you think was probably the biggest risk you took, and did it pay off?
The biggest risk, of course, was moving to College Station. Yeah. That would have been the biggest risk. Luckily, I had friends and family out here, Freddie. I do have family in Navasota, which is another story. We'll have to get some of them on the pod. But yeah, I have family out there. But moving out here, that was probably the biggest risk, because moving away from home, no one wants to move away from home.
No clients.
I started with no clients, so that means no money. Yeah. And that means Freddie needs his rent. And then, because living with Freddie, hey, you gotta pay rent. You gotta pay rent. Yeah. And it's one of those where it's like, if you don't set yourself up for success, success is not gonna be waiting for you. So it's one of those where you have to make the lucha. Yeah, you gotta make the strength. You just gotta keep it going, because once you look back, you're just that much further from the finish line.
Because what I'm thinking is, every time you started from nothing. Not in a bad way. No, yeah. But you came to College Station with nothing, not knowing anybody, not, hey, when I
first moved, I took Dago's twin bed, bro. I was trying not to fall off. I was 350 pounds when I moved over here? Way bigger, bro. I was way bigger. So I was just trying to stay on his little bed and not trying to fall off. I didn't have nothing. I just had my clippers, and from there, just grind it. Yeah. And the difference that separated me from the stylist at Whitney's was that I didn't shine down, and I did not reject anybody who wanted to sit in my chair. I took anybody with open hands. I didn't care where you were from, what your beliefs were, what your thoughts are. You're here for a haircut. I'm here to make you feel better. That was my mentality. That is my mentality every time someone sits in my chair. So it's one of those where it's like, I try to make everybody feel homey, everybody feel like they're at home when they're in my shop. And I feel like that's what separated me a lot too. And that's what got me, or it separated me the difference from everybody else there. I feel like they were just looking at money.
Yeah.
Like, oh, there goes $20, there goes $20, there goes $20. And me, yes, money was a big thing because who doesn't want money? But it's more personal, one-on-one. How could I relate to you? How do you relate to me? How can I help you? You know what I mean? Like, you're away from family.
30 minutes, 15 minutes. Like,
That's another big thing, like, for me, with my clients. Like, you're away from family. How can I make you feel like you're back at home? You know what I mean? Like, what you do back home? Like, how's your family doing? Like, every time a client sits down in my chair, that's the first question I ask. How's your family doing? Nice. That's the first question. And a lot of them are very open. Like, they're very, very blunt, very honest. Like, oh, everything's going good, or not too great, but I mean, we're hanging in there. You know what I mean? Which is awesome because they're being honest. It's not the greatest, but hey, there's always room for improvements.
Because every time I get a haircut, till this day, guys, since I was the guinea pig back in high school, till this day I still get my haircuts with Neff. And every time I would drive down back home from College Station, Neff was the one to fix my hair. Anywhere.
2 in the morning.
2, 3. I don't know why you were cutting hair already.
It's because that was another thing. When I was a teacher, I had my clientele too. So I would teach from 8 in the morning to 6 in the afternoon. I'd get home, I'd go home, I'd eat maybe something, and then I'd start cutting from like 9 o'clock to like 1 o'clock in the morning. Oh. So that's when I was like, okay, do I want to just teach, or do I actually just want to go behind the chair and start making this money? Now, when Freddie came with the offer to move over here, that's when I was like, well, this is my time to either move out of here and create something for myself, or stay here and just follow in the footsteps that everybody else follows out here, which is, I mean, just get your clientele, live what you want to live, do what you want to do. But it wouldn't set me up for like taxes and credit and rental history and all that stuff that you learn when you leave home. You get me?
Yeah, because, being at home, yeah, we can go back to our parents. They'll take us in. We got great parents.
Oh, definitely.
But sometimes with great parents that way, like they can't, not that they can't, but sometimes they don't teach us the stuff we need to learn in life. And that's kind of where, I don't know if you were put in that situation where,
and
like,
not just that,
snap,
I feel like
credit?
it's a whole different like a whole different environment for them. They didn't grow up with any credit. They didn't grow up with any of that. So it's like they either got the money or they don't.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like the way I was raised, which honestly, I kind of feel as a business owner, that kind of helped me as a business owner, because I've seen a lot of business owners, especially when COVID hit. When COVID hit, a lot of businesses out here closed down for good. And it's crazy because those businesses have been there for 4, 5, 3, 2, so many years. Some opened up that same year and closed that same year. Me being established and me learning that from the beginning, I always set myself up for success, of course, but I always have the negative waiting to happen. So
it's gonna happen.
So it's gonna happen. You just don't know when. Yeah. So for me, it's one of those where I already set myself up for the worst to happen. So when it happened, I just brush it off my shoulder. It's taken care of. Move on to the next. Because if you dwell, like I said, if you stay negative, there's no space for negativity, because with negativity, you don't get anywhere.
You reminded me of that quote. It's like, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail.
Oh, that's a good quote.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, if you never are planning for a purpose or for a reason, you're gonna fail.
And for me, moving down here, those were some of the steps I took. It was one of those where it's like that one roommate, Dago, that would come up and down because he didn't know whether he wanted to stay or go. Yeah. He would bring me up and down, and you took me out on Saturdays, Sundays to go look at shops, to go advertise myself. I would walk into some salons and they'd be like, oh, nope, we don't want you. So it's like one of those where it's like, gosh, where am I gonna find a spot? It took about 3 weeks, and then I said, all right, let's go. And that's when I did the jump.
Yeah. So you did the jump to move here, but you also did the jump to start your own thing. How did you know you were ready for that?
With that one, honestly, with the love and support from the Aggie Nation out here, honestly. The network out here is crazy. The organizations are amazing. Awesome. It's one of those where I know for a fact, the Gents organization, they get a lot of new pledges. And a lot of them, hey, where do I get my haircut? It's a simple text as, hey, just hit up Neff. That's all they do. That's all they say. Just hit up Neff, and then it's up to them if they hit me up. And half the times they do, which is pretty awesome, and it's amazing because it's one of those where it's like they don't know it, but I know most of their alumni even before they know their alumni. I've been here 7 years, so if you're a new Gents member, I knew the Gents member 7 years before you. So it's one of those where I get to see this a little bit more from like an out view, and I'm like, I know I'm not a Gent and I didn't go to A&M, but seeing so many from that organization, it's one of those where it's like, I'm pretty much a part of them because I know what they do. I know it's just amazing. Like their organization. Yeah, and not just them, but other organizations. There's so many that I forget their names.
The tennis team too.
Oh, the tennis team. I take care of most, if not all, the tennis guys, which is they're going to be on the pod too. So it's one of those where you get to see a little bit of the tennis guys. And I started with one tennis guy. He liked my work. He went out there, and they all just started showing up. People just started showing up, and I am very blessed with the tennis team out here because they come from all over the world. They come from different backgrounds, different cultures. Sometimes they don't even know the English language, or their English language is a little broken. So it's pretty awesome seeing them thrive, grow, seeing them on TV, seeing them on the news channels when they graduate and go play professionally like Hattie and everybody else. Carlos, it's one of those. It's crazy seeing you guys out there making moves, making all these changes, and setting yourself up for the next move because they're just trying to get the best and trying to do what's best for them, which they have a lot of sacrifices that they have to do as tennis players since they were young, which is their stories are amazing. We'll get into that when they come out.
What goals do you have for yourself or for the shop?
So as far as the shop, I mean, I feel like I'm a one-man shop right now because everybody who comes in here is looking for me, which I love it. I love it because I mean, I made a name for myself out here, which is awesome. But it's one of those where I feel like the shop has grown to where I love it. Of course, there's always room for improvement in anything, but I feel like there's more steps in life that you got to take. This podcast being one of them, it's one of those where I feel like our stories, not only our stories, but stories that our future guests will help out people in the long run, and that's what these goals are. I want people to share their love, share the words, share encouragement, share these conversations, because what a lot of people don't see is I personally grew up in a community where if you got problems, you got to handle it yourself. Your parents have their own problems, your siblings have their own problems, they don't want to hear your problems. And being here, I've learned that a lot of people have different mindsets. A lot of people actually share their problems and they understand what's going on because they've heard how it happens. You know what I mean? So me seeing that, it's one of those where it's like, boom, a big mind change as far as like, I wish I would have communicated more. I wish I would have talked more. I wish I would have shared more. But there's nothing there. I mean, you can't really wish anything. You just gotta change your mindset now and change it for good and just keep moving. Now you got to do what you want to, like kind of like what your quote was.
So, like, do you feel like you're in a different stage in your life where you want to give back, like by sharing stories or by connecting people? Because this podcast didn't start out of, hey, I'm gonna make a podcast. I feel like you have been thinking about it. You're very thoughtful. You're very methodical. So for this to come about, like, why now?
So the reason I chose now was because of all the past students that I've had, and seeing their success now is pretty awesome, seeing where they came from. And if they were willing to share that from the beginning and seeing their stories and seeing how they got there, maybe their perspectives of how they see school changes every year, you know what I mean? Because life changes. And I feel like I decided to do this podcast now because I feel like I'm wasting time seeing a lot of people change, seeing a lot of people go, seeing a lot of people grow. And I could have been a part of their life growing up, and they could have seen this growing up and been like, okay, maybe I would have done this a little better. Maybe that can help out my kids later on, or maybe that could help out my younger brother coming up, seeing what I did here, you know what I mean? And it's one of those where, going back to the communication things, maybe you didn't have that communication with your parents, but maybe your friend did have that conversation with his parents. And maybe him sharing what his dad shared with him can help you better think what's going on in the world. So that's why I started this podcast, because everybody comes from different backgrounds. Everybody's parents share different things with their kids, different stories, different upbringings, different beliefs, different everybody comes from different backgrounds. And let's say Freddie's dad didn't have the time to show him or train him in a certain way, and your parents had that ability to share with you, that you could share with him. This podcast is pretty much to highlight those events and highlight those stories. That way you guys can see that there's more people like you, or there's people that are in worse predicaments than you think.
Nice. And I know earlier we were talking about when I said, are there some things that people misunderstand about you, by being young? I said you were going to say, or you were going to say a story about that, like about being young and...
Okay, so no, not under misunderstanding, no, but under teaching and misunderstanding teaching sometimes, the hard thing I learned from teaching was you can't help everybody.
Ooh,
so
okay.
that's one thing I learned from teaching, and it hurt me to death because I had a whole bunch of students that I've seen come and go, and I want them to succeed so bad, and they might be the stars of the school or the stars of the class, but
they
don't want it, and you can't force them to want it. Yeah. So it's one of those where it's like you see the potential, and the potential's already there.
Yeah.
Except
they don't care.
Their habits and their surroundings is what holds them back. And I feel like that is that was one of the biggest things, where it's like you can't help everybody. And it sucks to say it like that, but as a teacher being there, you try your best. You stick with so many people for so long. I've had so many students that I've mentored so hard because I knew they had so much potential. They were already there. All they had to do was take a test. And at the end of the day, they ended up doing drugs and getting into all those bad habits and getting into all those bad situations.
But it's also
and that gave him the outcome where he's at now. And I can't really say where he's at now because I honestly don't know. I really haven't kept in touch with them and stuff like that. But it's crazy seeing like how that plays a big effect. And going back to teaching, that was when I was teaching. You can't help everybody. You can't help everybody.
That's crazy. It's like you can take the horse to water, but you can't make the horse drink it.
Exactly.
So that's crazy. And one of the biggest things that you mentioned, and I think it's a big thing, is just like I think that's the reason we have special people in our lives, from friends to teachers, mentors. They see, because they're already there. You know what I mean? They're already there. So when they see the potential, listen to them. If they want to show you something, or if you think they have what you want, just listen, And I think that's one thing that a lot of us don't do when we're younger, because sometimes we think we know it all, or this person doesn't know it. But if they're living the life that you want to have, maybe, ask them, what did they do differently, or how is it that you're at where you're at? And that's cool to see or hear that, because as much as you want to be able to help people, if they don't want it, you can't force them.
You can't force them. And the sad part about that is, there's nothing you can do about it. There's nothing you can do about it. So no matter how much force and effort you put into it, if they don't want to help themselves, you can't help them.
Nice. So all these years, you're cutting hair. Who cuts your hair?
I usually cut my own hair. I do have another stylist, Jasmine, out here, that sometimes when I can't see the top, she'll start trimming the top and stuff like that. But as far as the fades and line and beard edge ups, I usually take care of those myself. And when I started cutting my own hair, because when I used to cut my hair down in South Texas, I had the same problem you had, where there'd be a nice fade at the bottom, but the scissor cut on top, they can't get it. So it's one of those where it's like, if I'm gonna pay someone to mess me up, might as well mess myself up. So I started cutting my own hair. It took me about an hour before. Now it takes me about 20 minutes to cut my hair.
Wow. Okay.
So it's just a taper in the front now that I got the Aggie mullet going on.
The Aggie mullet?
Now that I got the Aggie mullet going on.
Go get
it.
Yeah. So did you have any bad experiences, or did your parents ever cut your hair, or?
Oh, no, yeah. So growing up, my mom actually is a hairdresser. She got her license to do hair in Mexico.
Yeah.
I personally didn't see none of that. As far as like her going to work and doing hairdressing, I didn't see none of that because that was in my sister's generations. Okay. Me and my sister were 20 years apart. Me and my oldest sister. Me and my youngest, 19, and then the other one were about 5. So it's one of those where it's like our age gaps are so different. So my older sisters lived a whole different lifestyle and everything compared to me and my younger sister. Yeah. So it's one of those where you definitely see that. My mom, she did a lot of hair cutting, but when she got her license, clippers did not exist. So it's one of those where it's all shear cut. So of course I had the Justin Bieber look, I had the bowl cut, I had the Beavis and Butthead look with the bangs in the front.
Did you ever get the gel that made it like blonde or?
Yeah, the lightning gel. Lightning gel. So we have tried out the lightning gel. Yeah. My sister would do her highlights, and whenever she had some left over, I would bleach a mohawk on my head. So I was always messing with my hair. It's pretty cool. But as far as like cosmetology, I didn't even think of getting it until you guys dared me in junior high. So it was one of those where it's like, I didn't expect to get in it. Yeah. It was awesome that I did because I pretty much got the same career my mom did, now seeing that. And I actually have a ring of hers that where she graduated beauty school. And she actually gave it to my sister, but I took it from her. So sorry, Sally, it's mine now. It's mine now. Well, she knows because I told her I was going to take it. I didn't give her an option. But yeah, so it's one of those where it's like I've had pretty much any haircut you could think of. I even shaved my head bald one time in like elementary, and I knew that wasn't the look. So I just let it grow back out. I always had the luscious black hair, silky black on my shoulders. So I mean, my hair was iconic. Everybody knew my long black hair growing up, and then I was pretty skinny too, so it was just glaring everywhere.
So everything going round circle, is there anything you would change or do differently?
Change or do differently? Not really, because I feel like I was pretty lucky the way it worked out. If I felt like if I didn't take the dare and I didn't take that challenge, yeah. I feel like I probably would have been back home still working either at a construction job or working on roofing, because I used to do all that. We built custom fences as well. So I have a background in a lot of things.
Like handiwork.
I have a lot of handiwork, yeah. So I've done plumbing, I've done concrete work, I've done custom cabinets, I've done sheetrocking, tape and flow, I've done anything you could think of.
If you weren't cutting hair, do you think you'd be doing that, or do you think you'd have your own like construction business?
I would probably go into having my own construction business, and I would probably do it, probably not even going the school route, just probably trying to grind it out and open my own company, yeah.
Well, I feel like most people back where we're from, they don't go to school, they just do it because they're the ones doing it. So, after all of that, nothing would change. You probably have your own construction business if you weren't doing this. So, like I said, now you fell in love with what you did, right? And you're happy with the outcome.
Oh yeah, man. I love the outcome that I got, especially because I ended up in a loving community, a caring community, because it's always growing. I got to be with one of my good friends from back home, actually a couple good friends, but sadly one of them left to San Antonio.
So after all of that being said, you wouldn't change anything?
No, so I wouldn't change anything because I feel like I'm blessed with what I have now. And honestly, the blessings keep coming in. So the way it's working out for me is working out well. I get to see different generations of students come in every year, honestly. So I'm very blessed for what I've had and the sacrifices we've made up to this point. And honestly, I wouldn't change anything because I feel like this is what led to this podcast. And this is what's giving us more opportunities to share to others. And it's amazing because without that, we wouldn't be here today.
Nice. Well, guys, thank you for tuning in. You got to hear a little bit about Nef. Just wait, because the next episode that we got, you're going to want to hear this. And we're going to end with Nef's closing thoughts.
So, howdy guys, since I'm in A&M now, I appreciate you guys for tuning in. Nef, if you're looking at this later on down the road, just try to be the best person you can be. Stay humble. God got your back. Don't worry about anything else. And my closing words would be pretty much, men are born free, yet walk in chains. And I feel like that's a good phrase for everybody to learn from. End it with that. God got our back. Peace.